Atlanta Falcons find themselves in no man's land again with the 12th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. Where do they need to go? What are their QB options? What do they need to go on defense? We'll talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. And I got to kick this thing over to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, man. Here to bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL draft 24/7, 365, man. The other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, where we talk everything college football, we talk everything NFL football, and like we like to say over here, it all starts with the NFL draft. DP on slate today, man. We are getting into the Atlanta Falcons, right? What quarterback options do they have? Offensive prospects that they need to target, defensive prospects that they need to target, and then we're bringing back, right, a blast from the past. We're getting into that coach them up segment where we're going to point out the players, and then we're going to tell the coaches, these are the skill sets, go coach them up, and you have a high-level football player, right? But DP, before we get that started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. The Atlanta Falcons, Keith, per NFL.com, have the 12th pick right now with 4 games left in the season, the 12th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. And they found themselves yet again in no man's land. Last year, they had the 8th pick, where we saw Bryce go 1. We saw CJ go 2. We saw A-Rich go 4, right? And they weren't in position when they should have been. They weren't in position for any of those quarterbacks. What do? Deja vu. They're back in a position where they're not in position for any of the top quarterbacks, and it is glaringly showing to be their biggest needs. Keith, quarterback options for them. First, before we get to the draft prospects, it's the elephant in the room. The situation over in Chicago with Justin Fields. If Arthur Smith is still the coach of this team next year, right, for the Atlanta Falcons, I don't think there's any shot that Desmond Ridder is the quarterback. I think you go ahead and you call up Chicago and say, hey, Ryan Poles, do you want to keep this young man? If you don't, I'll send you a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd and a 4th and maybe next year's 3. I'll send you some picks, right? Day 2 picks, day 2, day 3 combination to take him off your hands, Keith, because I think you put him in this offense. We see what he's able to do with DJ Moore, and now Cole Kmet finally is ascending this year and playing well. You put him in the offense with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, you know what I mean? With Bijan Robinson in the backfield, I think the Atlanta Falcons fans should be. I know that some of them are tied to Desmond Ridder, and I get it. I like Ridder coming out of college too. But Tommy DeVito, who's an undrafted rookie, is out playing and looking better in games than I see from Desmond Ridder, and that's alarming to me, Keith. So for me, I think you at first try to kick the tires on Justin Fields to get it started with the quarterback option.
Yeah, I think you definitely try to bring him back home, right? Like it's a homecoming, right? That's where he's from. And honestly, they get the right there wrong because in that draft where they took Kyle Pitts, right? I think that's where they were sitting in striking distance to take a quarterback, but they decided to go with Kyle Pitts at the number 4 overall pick. So you're able to do that. And I agree with you, DP. The simple truth of the matter is that Justin Fields has an element to his game that can scare defenses, right? And I don't know if Desmond Ridder has that. I like Desmond Ridder too coming out. I thought that he was a good quarterback that if things were well, he can propel you to wins, right? But I think Justin Fields has game-changing elements to what he can do. Now, the thing is this, that when you look at the Atlanta Falcons from a draft perspective, there's multiple different options they can go with this, right? You talk about the quarterback option. And even if you want to trade away potentially a Kyle Pitts, right, and get some more draft capital. And the only reason I say trade away Kyle Pitts is because it doesn't appear that they know what to do with Kyle Pitts anyway, right? So you trade away a potential Kyle Pitts. I think this offense, when you talk about offensive prospects, they need a vertical threat. So if you were able to trade away Kyle Pitts, get back another potential second-round pick maybe, right? And then you can trade and you get Justin Fields, then now you have the opportunity in a deep wide receiver class. You can go ahead, add Justin Fields, and then potentially in the second round, get a Xavier Worthy, a Xavier Legette, or a Keon Coleman. Whichever one of those guys potentially fall to the second round, now you have a Drake London, Xavier Worthy, a Drake London, Keon Coleman, plus Bijan Robinson combination to be able to propel this thing forward. So I think there is ways they can mold this thing. The issue is that I don't know if they've been drafting, and I always say this, right? It's very important for the general manager, the head coach, the front office, as far as the ownership, right? Everybody needs to be on the same page, because when you're drafting for one scheme and the head coach coaches another scheme, and then, you know, like it doesn't fit and it doesn't mesh. And that's why we're not seeing, because the Atlanta Falcons insert quarterback, they should probably have one of the more explosive offenses. But regardless, even if they don't, you still should be utilizing your high-level players, right? These are the guys you drafted with top 10 picks. There should be no reason why Bijan Robinson goes ghost for 5 games in the middle of the season, right? There should be no reason why Kyle Pitts, we still don't know what he's going to be in the NFL, right? Drake London, he goes ghost. Like, so they definitely have to figure something out there from an offensive, I guess, scheme and philosophy perspective.
No, 100%, Keith. And like you said, you think about the receiver options you could put into this offense. If a Malik Neighbors were to fall to 12, you put Malik Neighbors if you didn't trade off Kyle Pitts, right? Like if you were able, and that's the thing, like the Justin Fields thing is so interesting because you don't have to trade a first for him. So if you were able to get Fields with a 2 and potentially a 3, or, you know, some day 2, day 3 pick combination, you use that first round pick on a need, right? So you use that first round pick, say it is Malik Neighbors. So you get Justin Fields coming into this offense. You say you keep Kyle Pitts and you have Drake. Now you put Malik Neighbors there. Now you got a vertical offense. We saw what Kyle Pitts was as a rookie. Over 1,000 yards as a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. He balled out as a rookie. But for whatever reason, he had over 1,000 yards. You haven't been able to get that back and get that going again. So I think that they need to look at a lot of different things. Keith, I mean, Jayden Daniels, if you look at the draft from a quarterback standpoint, could Jayden Daniels potentially be there at 12 if the draft happened today? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And that would be interesting for them, because the one thing with Jayden Daniels that I'll say with him as a prospect, right, is that he does a good job at giving receivers chances, right? That's what we see with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. And that's what you can do with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, right? Just give them opportunities vertically down the field. But then also, like you said, the running ability, right? Just being able to change some games with your legs. Now, the issue is this, right? Atlanta Falcons fans, are they going to want that physical profile again, right? Yeah. Because Jayden Daniels, Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, like they're, I guess, physique-wise, right? They all look the same, right? They're all probably about 6'3", 195 pounds, right? I don't know, DP. They might want something different, right? Something different to feel a little different, right? So if that'll be the biggest question for Atlanta Falcons fans.
Keith, I think, you know, and if they didn't go receiver or quarterback, right? You could look at a J.C. Latham at right tackle, right? You look at a J.C. Latham and improve, you know, this offensive line that hasn't been the greatest. So you can get better, and you know, you can look at Dallas turn. We're getting that in the second segment, but like we can look at those defensive guys. But I think a J.C. Latham, I'm trying to think another right tackle, because I don't really like flipping tackles that much in the draft. Like, you know what I mean? Unless they have shown the ability to do so.
Kingsley Su'Amatua. That could be somebody that they definitely take a look at, you know, just as far as ability to play that right tackle. Talise Ford.
I was about to say the same thing.
He'd be a big-time one that they could put at that right tackle situation. So, yeah, I mean, this is a deep offensive tackle class. This is a deep wide receiver class. Both positions that the Atlanta Falcons need, right? But you know what else they need, DP? They need some defensive help, right? You almost jumped straight to it, right? You was trying to transition, but we're about to transition right now. So, man, stay tuned. Coming up next, man, we're going to talk about the defensive side of the football. The Atlanta Falcons, right? They need help on the defensive side of the football. They need some playmakers. So we're going to talk about that. Who should they go after? Who should they target in the NFL draft?
As the weather continues to get colder, the NFL offers Stay Hot on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, guys, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Let me repeat that. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Guys, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, first things first, stop thinking, put some action to it, and go do it. Secondly, there's no better time or place to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Go and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season because FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Draft scenarios continue for the Atlanta Falcons, and Keith, I almost jumped ahead of us, man. I almost read too far in the book. Dallas Turner, the edge, right? And this was something that I was very critical of their 2023 NFL draft. This is, everybody knows I was on record. I didn't think they needed to draft Bijan Robinson because they had bigger needs like the edge. Well, they said, no, we're going to take Bijan. We trade up for Matthew Bergeron. Then we're going to take a flyer on Zach Harrison out of Ohio State. Yeah, that did not help your pass rush at all. It didn't help your edge situation at all. And you were hoping that D'Angelo Malone and Arnold Epiketti that you drafted the year prior would be able to take those leaps. Haven't seen that, Keith. So you think about Dallas Turner, him potentially being there at the 12 spot, Laiatu Latu, who we talked about along with Jared Verse. We don't know when the first edge is going to come off the board because these quarterbacks, these receivers, and the offensive tackles, typically they play priority for teams. And then the defense, the edge, and the corners and stuff like that. But this is a team that absolutely needs to get after the passer. You know what I mean? Yeah, the quarterbacks in their division, it doesn't look great right now, right? Baker Mayfield, truthfully, if anybody's playing the best, it's Baker Mayfield, right? And we don't know if he's going to be the starter in 2024 for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I still think that, you need to improve because I think the secondary is pretty good, man, with A.J. Terrell and Clark Phillips, the rookie, of course, my guy Jesse Bates and everything, but they need to get that edge rush going and get that more consistent, Keith, and that's got to be a priority. So if you can't, I don't think it's a priority over quarterback. It's definitely not a priority over quarterback. But if you can't get Jayden Daniels or one of these top tier quarterbacks, you're not going to move up. And if say 3 receivers are already off the board, do you want to add a Roma Dunze or whoever's wide receiver 4, or would you rather add the top pass rusher if they're available?
Well, yeah, look, but listen, even with the edge rusher position, if I was them, you're talking about sitting at pick 12, right? And I like this edge class. I think it's a very interesting class, right? And it should provide some depth, but there is a guy that I would target specifically with 2 guys, and those 2 guys are Chop Robinson and Jared Verse. I would target those 2 guys if you're talking about top end in the first round edge defenders, because I'm looking at one guy, DP, and you're going to pair, I'm going to go ahead and pair a Penn State edge rusher with another Penn State edge rusher. Arnold Epiketti is already on the Atlanta Falcons, right? And this guy's on the heater right now, DP. I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 sacks in the last 5 games, DP. So he's rolling right now, and it's all his sacks, DP. He has 5.5 sacks on the season. All of them have come in the last 5 games. So you're hoping that light bulb has started to turn on for him, right? Because he was a highly talented, highly explosive player. That he said, you know what? He is a guy that has all the physical tools to be able to consistently get out the quarterback. Now, this is the thing, DP, that the reason I would say, a Jared Verse, potentially a Chop Robinson, but probably Jared Verse is because Arnold Epiketti, he's almost your what we call at LSU, your field linebacker, right? That's the more athletic guy. He can also drop in coverage, things like that. But then you have Jared Verse, who is your heavy run stopper, right? He's the guy that's going to set the edge. He's that heavy guy. He's that heavy-handed player. So I would pair Jared Verse with the Arnold Epiketti, and then now I feel like you have a really good 1-2 punch, right, coming off both sides. But then you also have defined positions, DP, for both edge positions, which I think would be really good.
No, I like that too, Keith, because Verse is going to bring that first step quickness, but he's also going to bring that speed to power conversion, right? He's going to help you in the run game, be able to set the edge against tight ends, the outside shoulder against tackles, right? And kind of force the Alvin Kamaras, the Rashad Whites, the Chuba Hubbards of the world that's in your division, force them back into Grady Jarrett, David Amyamada, and those guys on the interior defensive line. So I like that a lot, Keith. I think it's interesting because I think Laiatu Latu could be a decent, a good fit here as well. With his ability, he's so polished with his hands, being able to really clear himself, clear the hands of blockers, work the inside end, the inside track with the long arm over, but also the hand usage to win the outside edge. Do I think he's like this high octane athlete? No, but I think that Arnold Ebiketie would bring that explosiveness off the opposite side and allow him to be more of the kind of power rusher in a sense, right? Kind of you got your speed and then you got your power on the opposite side to where you can collapse the edges in two total different ways with those guys. So, and again, like if Arnold Ebiketie continues to finish this thing out, he can earn that starting job where it's like we're not trying to replace you, we're trying to add to you, right? So he got to, you want to see him finish these last 4 games out strong so you can have a better indication in 2024, especially the off season. To know what you need to do. And Keith, crazy enough, I'm not gonna rule out safety either, though, Keith. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna rule out safety. I'm not a big.
I was gonna ask you about the middle of the defense, right? You talk about linebacker and safety. I was gonna ask you how do you fix those 2 position groups also?
I love Jesse Bates. Like he's stud, man, But I'm not a big fan of Richie Grant. Richie Grant is, he's competitive, he's feisty, but he's a smaller guy. I don't think he's that great in coverage. And I think about, okay, say you were to go first round, and only two safeties I'm even comfortable with taking first round. You know what I mean? Is Miami's Cameron Kitchens and Tyler Nubin, from Minnesota. Those are the only 2 guys that I would even consider taking in the first round. Now, top 15, would that be kind of high to some people? Of course, that would absolutely be a little high for some. Safeties are a little devalued in today's NFL. But you think about you already have a ball hawk back there, Keith, and Jesse Bates. You put Cameron Kitchens, who's also a ball hawk. You put either Tyler Nubin, who's also a ball hawk. Now your defense in 2024 looks like Jesse Bates at free, can kind of move from free to strong. Same thing with Cameron Kitchens and Tyler Nubin. Tyler Nubin probably be more of the better fit at the strong because he's got a bigger frame, 6'2", about 215. And then you have AJ Terrell, you got Clark Phillips, you have D. Alford, you have Jeffrey Okuda. So the secondary would be legitimate. It would be locked down, right? But then that puts some onus. Like day 2, you got to start nailing on those edge rushers, right? Because you took Matthew Bergeron, who's been okay. Well, you could have had a Derek. I don't know why I'm blanking on my guy from Auburn who went to Seattle. I can't remember.
Oh man, I'm blanking on his name.
I'm blanking on it so hard right now, and I hate it. That's my guy. But Derek Hall.
Yeah, Derek Hall. Yeah,
Derek Hall. So, like, what I'm saying? You could have had Derek Hall. You could have had Byron Young. You know what I mean? Who's been an impact player for the Rams? You could have had some more edge help, man. But you talk about the linebacker situation, Keith. They got Caden Ellis, who they signed off from the Saints and everything. I don't know what they do with linebackers. It's like
I think this is and listen, they drafted
linebacker first round worthy right now.
No, I don't know, and I don't think so. But that's why you got the 2nd round and 3rd round, DP, right? And you wait for the 2nd and 3rd round to draft a linebacker. Potentially Jeremiah Trotter could fall to the 2nd round, or you can even potentially get a Peyton Wilson, right? Who we talked about the medical stuff a little bit, but he's played 2 healthy years, so I think he's a prime candidate.
Tommy Eichenberg.
Yeah, where it's just one of those situations where it's like, okay, where there's some devaluation of the player because of medicals. You know what? 2nd, 3rd round, we'll take a swing on him, right? Because we need to fill that position. And they tried with Troy Anderson. I think Troy Anderson is on IR this year. But also, I think that both Trotter, both Peyton Wilson and Tommy Eichenberg, right, are all 3 linebackers that when it comes to playing a run, right, they understand instinctually playing the linebacker position more. Troy Anderson was a freak athlete because he played quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, DN, safety, right? He did everything, and he was a really good athlete.
Sounds like Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah. And you're hoping that you can kind of turn that over, right? But it doesn't necessarily always work out like that. That's why I always say linebacker, you give me the guy with the instincts, and guess what? His 4.8 will be a 4.5 on the football field because instinctually he understands what's going on a whole lot more. So, DP, we talked about these prospects, right? Deep offensive prospects, defensive prospects. But coming up next, man, like I said, we're bringing in this blast from the past, man. We're talking about the coach 'em up segment, man. What players are we pointing out that coaches do the right thing by these players, right? Get a hold of them, do what you have to do, develop the skill sets, and then you're going to see instant results, man. So coming up next, man, is our coach 'em up segment.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL Draft has been brought to you by Prize Picks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Guys, with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports and or leagues. For example, Steph Curry plus Justin Jefferson at a 15.5 combo of 3-pointers and receptions made. Do you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every week. This week on Prize Picks, this Sunday, Baker Mayfield versus the Green Bay Packers. I'm taking Baker Mayfield for over 225.5 passing yards. Guys, all you need to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Keith, a prospect that I would tell NFL as a scout, that I would say, listen, he's got the size, good arm length, he's got the build. You just need to work on some technical things with him. That's Wisconsin's left tackle, Jack Nelson, a guy that I ended up giving like a day 3 grade. I gave him like a high 5th, I could see 4th round for developmental traits. He's listed at like 6'6", 311, a good run blocker, a guy that for me he's more of he's experienced in both zone and gap because they've run both a lot during his 3 years at Wisconsin. We know Wisconsin, they run the ball, and he's experienced in that realm. And you look at him, he's got good hand strength. He understands how he kind of sets with that 45-degree angle. With a set point, the thing that he needs to work on, his hands are wide and low. And this is something talking to, some young offensive linemen in college. I said, man, hey, are they teaching you guys this nowadays? He's like, yeah, like they're telling them the kind of forklift, uppercut, with the hands, bring them from low to high. And I'm like, yeah, that's not working out on tape for a lot of guys coming. And I've noticed that over the last 2 years, Keith, that these offensive tackles are coming out of college, and we wonder why there's such a little bit of a struggle when people say, well, what's going on with Ike Mekwonu? What's going on with this guy? What's going on with that guy? It's the technique that they're being taught in college. So for Jack Nelson, his hands are shoulder width. They're close down to by his hips, mid or probably low mid section. You know what I mean? Bring them hands a little bit higher, big dog. You know what I'm saying? You're a big body guy. You got almost 34-inch arms. Like, no, you got 33s and some change. I don't need your hands down here, right? His punch timing needs to improve a little bit, right? You're not always going to be perfect, but you can't be early, because when you're early, you lose. And it's like, that's just what it is. So I think with him, a zone team can absolutely get a starting caliber tackle. I project him to be more of a right tackle, but still, you can get a starting caliber tackle with him. But when you think about some of these edge rushers we have in the NFL nowadays, if your punches don't land, you punch too early, or if your hands aren't prepared for the battle, Keith, you know what I'm saying? It's not the battle you're just going to be losing. You're going to lose that war, big dog, and your quarterback's going to get sacked. You're going to strip sack, all different things. So you got to be able to take care of business. But I think this is a guy that has some decent upside, but you got to coach him up.
Yeah, I like that, DP. And when we talking about the hands, right? I really think that that has potentially become like the counteract to defensive linemen, right? And coaches teaching them to attack the offensive lineman hands. So the coaches are telling them, well, don't show them any hands. But I don't know if that's necessarily the smartest thing to do, right?
Like
like
showing them all this, Keith. You showing them all your chest. Come on,
you get
man.
into a fight, right? I'm not walking down with my hands down, right? Just because I don't want you to know where I'm going with my hands. I'm not doing that. You're gonna see my hands, and I'm gonna just do my very best on what I can do, right? We're not taking it that way. But DP, coach them up segment, man. As you win college prospects, I'm gonna go to NFL prospects, man, that we studied during the NFL draft. Both top 10 players, both 6'5", 6'6", 265 pounds, both one of the more physically impressive players in their draft, right? You're talking about the 2023 draft, the 2022 NFL draft. I'm gonna start with Travon Walker. What he was number 1 overall, right? And he has right now, DP, he has 5 sacks on the season, right? And this is a guy, and the reason why I say coach him up, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw Tyree Wilson in there, right? Tyree Wilson right now has 2.5 sacks. So you're talking about a second-year player and a rookie, both, like I said, 6'6", 270 pounds, right? Drafted to do the same thing, right? Both had inside, outside versatility as pass rushers and just playing multiple positions along the front. Both teams, front office, coaches, whoever leading decision makers, decided to put these guys as edge rushers. My coach 'em up part, or my coach 'em up statement is put these guys inside, kick them inside. They were most dominant. They were most physically impressive when they played the inside, when they played 4-eye, when they played 3-tech. That's when they were most, and I always say this, that's when they were in the most athletically advantageous situation, DP. They were solid edge rushers, right? But they were not great. And listen, you have to have a certain element of first step explosiveness to consistently beat tackles. But then you also have a certain level of fluidity and nimbleness to your game, right? To win as an edge rusher. Listen, these are big boys. These boys are 6'6". They're naturally tall, right? They're naturally going to be high hipped, right? That's what's going to happen. So we're talking about some of those edge rushers a la Von Miller, right? When they're able to get that shoulder to where it's only about a foot off the ground, Travon Walker and Tyree Wilson are not doing that. And you see it from game to game. So my thing is this, these guys are both strong. They have great arm length. They're physical. They're mean. They're nasty. Put these guys inside. Let them work in the trenches and let them be enforcing from the defensive edge position. Because you look at Travon Walker, DP, people in his draft class, Kayvon Thibodeau is well on his way. I think he's at double-digit sacks already for this
12,
year.
I think 12 or 13.
Yeah, already had 12 or 13 sacks, right? Improved. Aiden Hutchinson has already made his mark, right, as an edge rusher in this game as one of the better defensive prospects. You go to the back end of that first round, DP, Jermaine Johnson, I believe, is well on his way to double-digit sacks, right? Then we just talked about this guy that went in the second round, Arnold Ebiketie, 5.5 sacks. He matches the total of Travon Walker, right? So my thing is this, that you're devaluing Travon Walker when you put him at the edge position. Let him play defensive tackle. Go back and watch the film at Georgia. The guy was physically dominant, right? I don't know if it was Jalen Carter, but I feel like it was really close to that, DP, to the type of impact and disruption he could provide. Then Tyree Wilson, same exact thing, man. His best quality was when he had first step explosiveness, he was able to get into these interior offensive linemen, shoot his hands, and shut them. So put both of those guys inside. That's my coach him up statement, DP. Put them inside and let them go to work.
No, I love that, Keith, because both of these guys could be impact players, right? Like, yeah, Travon is having a better season, being able to get more sacks than he did last year and everything, but that's still not putting him in the best position to win.
It's not relative to his draft position and what you've seen, right? Like if this was a second and third round pick, we'd be like, oh, that's a decent season. But you're talking
especially when Aiden Hutchinson went 2, people criticized the pick of Travon Walker going 1 over Aiden Hutchinson and everything. You want to put him in position to where he looks like the number 1 pick in the draft. You're not doing that, man. And I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? Remember all the talk about, I'm not going to name the people who, the media members who said it, but it was like, yeah, the Houston Texans might take Tyree Wilson over Will Anderson. That would have been a vast mistake. That would have been a terrible idea. You know what I'm saying? And everybody who watched these two guys who weren't just enamored by the size, and were still trying to peg him as he's an edge rusher. You're like, no, he's not. Like he's an interior 3-tech. Like you let him rush as a 3-tech, you're going to get the best of him. But everybody that watched it knew Will Anderson Jr. was the best out of the class. Like he was the best. There was no shot of Tyree Wilson being the better pick. And we're seeing that kind of we've seen that materialize all season. Will Anderson Jr. has been one of the highest double team edge defenders in the league. Kid, he's a rookie. And teams are like, yeah, no, we're not letting you terminate our blocking scheme. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm with you. I love those two picks because, again, neither one of these guys are consistently put in positions to look their best. And the NFL has to do a better job at this.
Yeah, they have to, man, because like you said, you're not getting a proper value. And the more we do this, DP, the more we see that those type of things matter. And those are the glaring things that we notice. And we're like, this is just, it's simple. Watch the college film. He doesn't play that position, right? So it's very simple, man. But, you know, we're going to get back to the DP. I enjoyed this Coach 'em Up segment, bringing it back. Like I said, a blast from the past, but it might be here to return, DP. We don't have college football.
It's draft season, baby.
This draft season, we are bringing back the Coach 'em Up segment. But, man, that wraps up another show of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. What we talk everything college football. We talk everything NFL football. And like we always like to say, it starts with the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. We are bringing this type of fire, this type of championship level content each and every single episode, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That is my co-host, Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, man, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydays. On tomorrow's episode, we are scouting the Senior Bowl, looking at some more of their acceptees and guys that are heading down to Mobile. We're going to pick out 3 prospects, break them down, and what can the Senior Bowl event do for their draft stocks. So we're going to get into that tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.